I'm Maria Menounos, and you're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
Yo, what's up, y'all? Welcome to the New Amsterdam After Show. This is season 2, episode 18. This episode is called Matter of Seconds. I am your host, Tyler Tyson. And of course, I have all of my segments on today's show. We have our news and gossip, my medical segment, and of course, my question of the week. But first, let me give you my overall thoughts on this particular episode. And per the usual, I thoroughly enjoyed this episode. Like, I felt like this was a nice way to kind of tie up a very interesting season. And we'll talk about a little bit why I say that. But overall, the episode was great. They kind of gave us a preview or a clip of another episode. It's like we got 2 episodes in one, which I just enjoy every part of it. I love the new character that was introduced. All of that we'll talk about. So let's go ahead and jump into my very first topic, which is that new doctor. His name is Dr. Daniel Shin. And when they introduced him, so they gave a little bit of an intro. Ryan, who's the star of the show, came on and he talked about how, this is not the season finale that they planned, and that there were so many more episodes in between the season finale and where they are now. And so they were like, well, we have to introduce this character to even wrap up the season. So they gave us just a like maybe 10-15 minute clip of the new character, Dr. Shin, and like a clip from that other episode. And I just love, he kind of is mixing things up at New Amsterdam. He does have a heart of gold, like all the other doctors at New Amsterdam, but he goes about things his own way, and he just refuses to conform to the norm. He has a system that has worked for him, and he's bringing his system to the New Amsterdam hospital. And I think he's a great addition. And also, let's remember Dr. Reynolds is gone, who's played by Jocko Sims. Once again, if you have not seen that interview, go and check out our interview here at AfterBuzz TV, where I interviewed Jocko Sims a couple weeks ago. But as we see now, Jocko's not on the show, at least as far as we can see. He's not coming back. And not saying I don't miss him, because I do, but I really am just so intrigued by Dr. Shin. It's almost like, okay, at the moment, this is kind of soothing the way that I feel, because Dr. Reynolds is not there. So I love the fact that we have a new character. The way he and Dr. Sharpe get along is very interesting. And you can see in the way that this episode closed, you saw that they actually went out on what I'm going to go ahead and call a date. And she kept giving him some looks throughout the episode. So I was happy to see that they did allow those two to kind of have this romantic moment. Now, we don't know what happens. That's kind of a cliffhanger for the season, but it was just nice to see another budding romance taking place. Now, that does kind of throw a wrench into the overall storyline, because of I and a few other people have been talking about the fact that Dr. Sharpe and Max, they had something that we thought was going on. So now that Dr. Sharpe is now being entertained by another guy, it's like, well, what happens to her and Max's relationship? So that was just a nice little cliffhanger, and it'll be interesting to see where they go with that particular storyline. Also, something else, and I'm going through all just a little minute things before we tackle the big meat of the episode. So another little minute storyline was Dr. Bloom. She saw her mom, who I adore. Her mom's character is just ridiculous. She kind of reminds you of one of the housewives. I'm not sure which one, because I don't follow the housewives that closely, but I can see her on like the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills or something. Maybe it's Vanderpump. I think her mom reminds me of Vanderpump. I think that's who it is. But either way, I love her mom's character, and her mom, Bloom caught her mom kind of chatting it up and being extra cozy with Casey, the nurse that works with Dr. Bloom that has all of the tattoos and everything. And so she was trying to figure out why. Come to find out, her mom was planning Dr. Bloom's birthday, and it turned into this beautiful moment, only to come and find out that it wasn't Dr. Bloom's birthday, like, at all. It's not even the right season for her birthday. So they kind of laughed it off, because her mom is an addict, or a former addict, and so her memory isn't the best. And so they just kind of laughed it off. And I love the fact that we got to see Dr. Bloom kind of just enjoy the moment, because she's quick to be mad about something. So the fact that she was able to laugh this off and be like, you know what, my mom, you gotta love her. At least she's trying to like make my birthday special, even though it's not the right time. Like, she found the good in that situation. And I just love that, especially now, considering we're all kind of in this isolation, in this quarantine. I think we're all just looking for the silver lining in every single scenario. So the fact that she was able to find that silver lining, I thought was amazing. And also, let's get into one of the main storylines. So Max is working with this family. So Max is out walking his with his daughter, just taking a stroll through New York, and he comes across this little boy who kind of stumbles into him. And just from the boy stumbling into him, Max, being the doctor, the great doctor that he is, he was able to identify the fact that this child was suffering from some type of muscular disease, or at least he thought it was a muscular disease. So the parents eventually, like, they quickly came because they were all in the park together. He went and did some tests, convinced them to come in, and come to find out the child has a debilitating muscular disease that is going to eventually take his life. And he basically said that by the time the child is like 18 or 20, he will be completely dependent on his parents. He'll be in a wheelchair, and probably before 25, he will no longer be, here in this realm. And so they went through the whole process of, one, identifying what the issue was, coming up with different possibilities of how they could possibly extend this child's life, because there is no cure for this. And I don't remember them naming the muscular disease. It wasn't like muscular dystrophy or anything like that. But he just basically said that, this child is just not going to be here. So they were trying to find different ways to help the child extend his life. And there was a clinical trial that the child needed to be able, after Max did his finagling and he went and met with the doctor who was overseeing this particular trial. Because you guys know, whenever there's a trial for anything, whether it's cancer, AIDS, whatever it is, there's this long process that you have to go through to even get admitted to be a part of the trial. It's almost like being admitted into college. You have to fill out all of these different papers, and then you have to be interviewed, and then you have to just get through the admissions process. And one of the parts of this process was the physical process. And the child had to get up from on his back, roll over, and stand up on his own in a matter of 10 seconds. Something that sounds really easy for all of us that have total control of our bodies. And this child just could not do it. The first time he did it in 12 seconds. And his father was like, "Oh no, he can do it." Like, and he gave his son a pep talk, and the son was like, "Yeah, daddy, I can do it." It was so beautiful and so touching. And the son was really trying to please his dad and do it, but he did it in 16 seconds instead of the 12 that he did the first time. So there was no way he could be admitted into that particular trial. And there was another trial that Max was like, "Well, maybe we can get him in this one." The only difference is the success rate of this trial is really, really low. It's kind of mediocre to below average. And so the mother and the father kind of argued about this. Y'all know this. I'm not trying to retell you the story, but they argued about this only to come to the decision that they're not going to do it, just because they want whatever the trial is, they want it to be a successful trial, and you only get one shot. Like, once you expose yourself to any series of trials, that then eliminates you from any other one. Because the father was thinking, "Oh, well, if we do this one and it doesn't work, maybe it will prolong his life a little bit and they'll find a cure, and then we can do that trial." And Max is like, "No, it doesn't work like that. Like, once you do one, that's kind of it. You only got one shot at this thing." And so they eventually made the decision as a family to just enjoy the time that they have with their child. And should the right trial come along, then they would opt into that. But I felt like that particular storyline hit so close to home, because I don't know about you guys, but I think about it all the time. The older I get, it's like, okay, let's start having kids around here. And you start thinking about the possibilities of what ailments or disabilities your child could have. I mean, I think anytime, no matter what the age, no matter when you begin to start thinking about starting a family, you start to think about certain things. And that's definitely one of the things that comes into my mind sometimes. So it was just interesting to kind of see how a family could potentially deal with something as horrific as a child having a debilitating disease, and knowing at the age of 5 that they're not even going to live beyond the age of 25. Like, that's a hard pill to swallow for any parent. So I thought that they covered that beautifully. And if there was any touching moment, because this show, very similar to This Is Us, New Amsterdam is real quick to make us cry. And that was one of the moments. I don't think I shed any tears, but if there were any tears shed, it was during that process. Also, something else, and well, I'll save it because I have my question of the week, and Max, and another storyline that Max is a part of is my question of the week. So I'll come back to that, to Max again. So let's move on to Dr. Sharpe and Dr. Bloom. Another big part of this storyline was the fact that there was this crisis going on in the hospital. All of these people were coming in and they were treating them and they were getting everyone hooked up to machines. And then out of nowhere, they all began to crash, what they call crash, meaning their heart stopped or they were going to cardiac arrest. And they all happened like simultaneously. And they were just scrambling, trying to figure out what the hell is going on. Like, why is one patient crashing? Okay, cool. We can put all of our attention on this one patient. But all 50 of these people crashing at once, like, what is happening? And so they eventually found out that the morphine, so they had these what's the word? It's like a pre-packaged morphine, I guess syringe, like whatever the dosage is, they already had it. So that way it would eliminate the doctors having to sit there and measure it out. Well, come to find out, they were overfilling I don't even know what the actual medical terminology is, but the packaging that the morphine is in, instead of it being just a one person dosage, let's say it that way, it's like a 2-person dosage. So they were overfilling the dosage. So these patients were crashing because they were basically ODing on morphine. And Dr. Bloom, she figured that out, and or Dr. Sharpe, she figured it out, and they eventually find a way to reduce it, and they ended up saving all of the patients. And they also said that this is something that goes on in other hospitals. So I thought that this was pretty interesting, considering, once again, the times that we're in, and a lot of people are finding themselves in the hospital and trying to figure out, like, well, how do we cope with this? And people are just having to do very, very different things. And I think what's beginning to happen is we're so used to everything being prepackaged, and us not having to think about things and just going about our normal routine, that now, because of the times that we're in, you actually are having to revert back to the old ways of actually measuring everything out and treating this patient different from this patient. It's not a one size fits all anymore. We're kind of going into that era of society. And I thought, once again, that it was just beautifully done, beautifully handled. The way that they executed it and talked about it, and even went about correcting it, I thought all of it was masterfully done. And they just did not miss a beat on that particular topic. So another storyline that was very interesting, Dr. Frome. So Dr. Frome was dealing with this guy who was going through a divorce from his wife, and the wife basically had her attorneys call him out for being a gun owner and saying that he's a threat to society, and that he needed to have a psyche valve to keep his gun in his possession. Now, this topic, I really felt like they could have done a whole show on this, because we all know that the Second Amendment, which gives us the right to bear arms, that is always a hot button topic, considering that we live in a society where mass shootings are kind of the norm now. So there's this huge debate all the time, whether it's an election year or not, as to whether or not gun laws should even exist. Should we curtail rights? Like, how do we fit this and keep the Constitution intact? And basically, the guy, I don't remember his name, but the guy that Dr. Frome was evaluating, he basically called Dr. Frome out, like, yo, you're just this left wing liberal who doesn't want anybody to have guns, and the way that you are even asking these questions is starting to piss me off a little bit. And it really made Dr. Frome kind of check himself a little bit. And he and the guy kind of had a come to Jesus meeting, and Dr. Frome told him, like, yo, I own guns. I grew up in a gun owning household. And he just went through his whole process of how he got to where he is and how he got to his stance on guns now. And long story short, basically, the judge just asked like 2 simple questions, or the attorney via the judge was asking 2 just real basic questions. Is this guy a threat to others? Meaning not necessarily his wife, but just society as a whole. Is this guy likely to go out and shoot people? That was one question. And the other question is he a threat to himself? And Dr. Frome had to answer those questions honestly. And the honest truth was no, he's not a threat to anyone else. He's not a threat to himself. Um, and that's kind of where they left it. Now, in his evaluation, the guy, like, you saw he had some real serious anger issues. And you really saw he really should not have a gun because the reason why they brought this on in the first place is because he was angry at his wife. He always felt powerless in their relationship. And there was a moment where the wife was coming to the house to get something that she left over there. Like I said, they were getting a divorce. So she was living somewhere else. And when she walked in the house, he claimed he thought it was a burglar. And when he saw it was her, instead of lowering the gun like any normal person would do, he kept the gun aimed at her. No intention on shooting, but he kept it aimed at her because he said he wanted to scare her. He wanted her to feel powerless, which was exactly how he had been feeling the entire time in their relationship. Now, as crazy as that may seem, um, he said that he would never shoot her though. And I think that was the important part of that entire story, which is why Dr. Frum had to say, no, he's not a threat to anyone. But at the same time, try telling that to the wife. If you're the person that the gun is being held on, of course, you're going to look at somebody completely different than the judge or the lawyer or anybody else, because it wasn't you. I was the one that the gun was being pointed at. So her response to this was, I knew he was going to get off. I knew he was going to be able to keep his gun. And so she went and got herself a gun. And once again, that lends itself to the ongoing conversation in our real society, which is, oh, well, if he has a gun, well, then I need a gun. And it's like, well, that doesn't really defeat the problem. Now everyone's just shooting everyone. But like I said, this whole thing was a huge storyline. It's a hot button issue. I'm not going to be able to solve this issue talking to you. And I'm sure in the comments below, you're more than welcome to comment, but just us going back and forth, we're not going to solve the issue. I don't even know how to solve that issue. And I'm not even going to get into the whole gun discussion, but that is what they talked about on this particular episode of the show. Now, a fun storyline that took place that I just thought was hilarious. Dr. Kapoor, who is a man of a particular age. I'm going to go ahead and say he's somewhere between the age of 50 and 65. And you guys know how, unfortunately, in our society, we think once you get to a certain age, like your sex appeal, your sex drive, everything about your sexual appetite just dies. And this episode proved that is not the case because Dr. Kapoor had a patient, basically a patient's wife, who was hitting on him every single time he came to see about that patient. So when he would go into the room to see about the patient, which is a man, his wife, the man that's in the hospital bed, his wife would then grab Dr. Kapoor's butt or get super close in his face and just really make it clear that she was flirting with him. And so it was interesting because no one in the hospital wanted to believe him because they were shocked, like, how is somebody flirting with you? What do you mean you're being sexually harassed? What are you talking about? So nobody wanted to believe him. And he eventually found out that she had, and I actually have to do some research on this one. Apparently there's some type of trigger where it can be spotted in your eye. Like if someone gets close enough and they can see it in your eye, that it then causes you to have this amped up sex drive and you have no inhibitions and you're just willing to do any and everything. And like I said, I have to do some research on this because I didn't even know that was a thing. But apparently this particular individual had it. It could be fixed with just a quick corrective surgery in the eye. And that's what they ended up doing. And that whole situation was put to bed. But the romance that came out of this was that Dr. Kapoor and Karen, I believe Dr. Karen Brantley, I believe, the board member, who I don't particularly like, he was explaining this to her in an elevator, and she texted him and told him to call. So basically, that's gonna turn into a romance. So I can't wait to see in the new season what happens with Dr. Kapoor and Karen Brantley. I think that actually would be a dope romance. I would love to see them together because I love him. I hate her. Well, not hate, but I dislike her. And I think them together would just be a dope situation. So that was the episode in a nutshell. Now, there's one other storyline that I'm going to tackle in my question of the week. But first, let me go ahead and let's jump into our news and gossip. And so, our news and gossip, you guys know, usually with this news and gossip, I bring you whatever is going on with New Amsterdam. And I also bring you the playlist. Tyler Labine, he always gives us a video and he always tells us, why he chose a particular song and what that song is. But before we get into that, this episode, just a little behind the scenes. I don't know if you guys know this or not, but this episode was not supposed to be the season finale. I mentioned that at the top of the episode. They had to put together a whole bunch of little pieces to kind of make this episode. So I'm interested to see what will happen with those other episodes. They're still trying to figure out what will happen with those other episodes, if they will show up maybe as a collection of episodes over the summer, or if they will show up as part of season 3. We don't know. But of course, if they do bring it back, I will be here to cover it all for you guys. So I thought that was pretty interesting. All of the members of New Amsterdam have been, doing everything they can to show their gratitude towards the nurses and, people on the front lines during this pandemic. So that has been great to see. And there was one more thing that is flying off of my brain at the moment that I can't seem to think of. But in a nutshell, that's pretty much all that's going on with the news and gossip. In this particular episode, though, Tyler Labine did introduce a new song. It's called Winter Birds, and it's by Ray. I don't know how you pronounce his last name, so I'm not going to murder his last name. But if you go to Tyler Labine's Instagram page, which is TL Labine, he has the video there. You can watch it. The song it's really like a calm, melancholy, peaceful, low anxiety song. So if you're feeling anxious and you kind of need to just like zen and breathe a little bit, this is the perfect song for you. And like I said, if you go to Tyler Labine's Instagram page, which is TL Labine, you can see that video. Also yesterday, Jocko Sims, Jane Montgomery, who plays Dr. Bloom, and Tyler Labine, they all were on Twitter just kind of doing like a live tweet answering all of your questions. And I'm sure they'll probably jump on again. So if you just go ahead and follow them, you'll be able to stay up to date on anything that they do or anything that's going on with New Amsterdam. So with that, let's go ahead and get into my question of the week. All right, so my question of the week, you guys know I choose something based on a storyline that took place in this episode, and I pose it to you guys, and it's something that we can talk about well after this, this after show is going on. So you can follow me at the Tyler Tyson, or you can comment below. And the question of the week, it's all based on Max and Alice. So the storyline that I told you I would come to was that Max and Alice, you guys remember Alice from a couple episodes. She's been a guest star on probably, I think, 3 or 4 episodes now. And Alice is a single mom. Max is a single dad. They both lost their spouse that died prematurely. And they have just kind of found this connection in each other. Their kids get along. Bobby and Ella, they just get along so well. And so Max, though, after, a while of dating, he then told Alice that they needed to call it quits and they needed to just kind of stop. And the reason being is because he felt like he was still grieving his wife, his now deceased wife, Georgia. And so my question of the week is, do you think that the best way to get over someone is to go ahead, how people say the best way to get over someone is to get under somebody else? Do you think the best way to get over someone is to go ahead and begin a new relationship with someone else? Or should you allow yourself time to grieve and then try to enter into it? So in this particular situation, if you were Max, would you go ahead and continue dating Alice? Or would you allow yourself time to heal and just wait? So that's my question of the week. Let me know what you think. And we can, like I said, continue this conversation well after this after show is done. So with that, let's go ahead and get into my final segment of the day, which is my medical segment. And usually during my medical segment, I bring something so deep. I think we talked about cancer, we talked about PTSD, we've talked about counseling, we talked about so much stuff during these medical segments. And this medical segment is going to be real easy and real simple. We've even talked about addiction. And because we've talked about addiction, a lot of news reports, a lot of stories are being written about the various addictions that look like they're going to be birthed out of this quarantine. We're all locked away. We're all doing virtual happy hours and virtual parties and just virtual everything, which means since we don't have anywhere to go, when we wake up at 8, 9, 10 o'clock in the morning, oh, cool, we can go ahead and have mimosas. We don't have to just only have mimosas on Sundays, for Sunday Fun Day. We can do this every day. So now every day, some people are waking up to mimosas, and some people are, whereas I would have happy hour maybe once or twice, or go to a happy hour once or twice a week. Oh, now I can go to happy hour every day. One, I don't have to drive. Two, I don't have to worry about a Lyft or an Uber. And three, you know, where are we going? There's nothing to do. So people are drinking and smoking and eating and just feeding into our guilty pleasures. And so my advice to everyone, and not because I work out, not because, from a vanity standpoint, but just because I really think it's going to do all of us well, if you just incorporate a little bit of exercise in your quarantine. Like, you don't have to go out here and try to, like, I'm gonna get ripped, or I'm gonna gain 50 pounds, or I'm gonna lose 50 pounds. It doesn't have to be anything dramatic, just something so that you are constantly moving. Because what I have seen in my family with people that have various illnesses, what I've seen with elderly people as they get older, when you slow down and you stop moving, that's when things begin to set in. That's when we do pick up unnecessary weight. That's when we do begin to have these various addictions. Because if you're walking around your block or exercising in the backyard, if you make a plan and you say, you know what, I'm just going to, there's a dress that I want to fit in, or a suit that I want to fit in, and I just want to fit into that, and you set that as your goal, and that's it. Like, that just keeps you from sitting on the couch and watching TV all day. That keeps you from just smoking your life away or drinking your life away. It just gives you something else to do. So if there's a great thing that can come out of this, for everyone that's intimidated, I used to be super intimidated about the gym and exercise. Now there's no reason to be intimidated, because there is no gym. So you can begin your process of working out in the comforts of your home, at the park, with everybody else that's trying to find some way to work out. You have to socially distance yourself still, but still, it's just, my point is, there's no pressure. All of the pressure from society that we used to have, all of that mess is gone, because we're all just trying to figure it out as we go, and we're all trying to do a little something. So I just say, my medical advice, or my little tip for this medical segment, is just add some type of exercise to your day, and I promise you it will make the world of difference. Find somebody on Instagram that you admire their workouts. They don't even have to know you. Find some of the stuff that they do, and you just imitate what they do. Because most of these gym rats and these people out here that work out, they are going crazy. So they're putting their entire routines on social media. So if you just follow them, you can pick and choose what part of their routine you want to do. And by the time this whole thing is over, your new habit will be, oh, now I like to work out. So
Also,
that's it.
Tyler, this is
That's
Brianna in
my
the booth here right now. Just wanted to say that there's also a bunch of fitness places that are giving you free things. Like, I know I downloaded it's called Peloton, their app. It's usually $13 a month, but they're
yeah.
giving a 90-day free trial for the quarantine time period. So if you need some inspiration, or you don't know what to do at home, they have a bunch of at-home workouts on this app, and it's completely free for 90 days.
Perfect. Thank you. See, that's what I'm talking about, y'all. This is the perfect time to pick. Like, right now, I have been cutting my own hair. I've always wanted to cut my own hair. I went and bought these $30 clippers and just was like, I'm gonna do it. If I mess up, who cares? I'm home. Nobody's gonna see me. So my point is, this is the perfect time to pick up anything. And if exercise has been one of those things that you've been intimidated about, all of that goes out the window. Like, it doesn't even matter now. So just do it. And like Bree said, there are so many